Welcome students. Today we are going to talk about factors affecting the initial rate of enzyme activity. The main objectives of today's lecture are to understand how the activity of an enzyme is affected by its environmental conditions, to understand how any alteration in the environmental conditions of the enzyme changes the rate of reaction caused by the enzyme, to understand the impact of temperature on the reaction rate of an enzyme, to understand the impact of pH on the reaction rate of an enzyme, to understand the impact of enzyme and substrate concentrations on the reaction rate of an enzyme. So, let us first of all take a brief review of enzymes. Most biochemical reactions are so slow that they would not occur at a useful rate under the mild conditions of temperature and pressure that are compatible with life. Enzymes are remarkable biocatalysts that accelerate the rates of such reactions by well over a millionfold by providing a specific environment within which a given reaction can occur more rapidly. That is, enzymes make these reactions practically possible. So, reactions that would otherwise take years to complete in the absence of catalysts can occur in fractions of seconds if catalyzed by the appropriate enzyme. Some enzymes are capable of increasing the rate of a reaction by as much as 10 raised to the power 18 folds as compared to an uncatalyzed reaction. A process that would normally take billions of years can be carried out in less than a second. It was Edward Buchner in 1897 who discovered that yeast extracts could ferment sugar to alcohol, proving that fermentation was promoted by molecules that continued to function when removed from cells. Later, Frederick Cohne called these molecules enzymes. Further, James Sumner in 1926 isolated and crystallized urease and found out that urease crystals consisted entirely of protein, and he postulated that all enzymes are protein. Nonetheless, we know that ribozyme is an RNA molecule. Biochemical reactions entail chemical events that are unfavorable or unlikely in the cellular environment. An enzyme circumvents these problems by providing a specific environment within which a given reaction can occur more rapidly. So, basically the modus operandi of enzymes is that they bring down the amount of energy needed to raise the reactant to the transition state. This is achieved by modifying the substrate accordingly. The distinguishing feature of an enzyme catalyzed reaction is that it takes place within the confines of a pocket on the enzyme called the active site. The molecule that is bound in the active site and acted upon by the enzyme is called the substrate. The surface of the active site is lined with amino acid residues with substituent groups that bind to the substrate and catalyze its chemical transformation. Often, the active site encloses a substrate, sequestering it completely from solution. The enzyme substrate complex is central to the action of enzymes. The unique physical and chemical properties of the active site limit an enzyme's activity to specific substrates. The substrate binds to the active site of an enzyme by multiple weak non-covalent interactions like hydrophobic interactions, hydrogen bonds, ionic interactions, or reversible covalent bonds. This binding energy released due to the interactions between the enzyme and the substrate lowers the activation energy. Now, we know that the activity of an enzyme is affected by its environmental conditions. Any change in the environmental conditions of an enzyme can therefore alter the rate of reaction caused by the enzyme. The initial rate of reaction of an enzyme is the reaction rate when the enzyme and substrate have just been combined. If a graph of the amount of product is plotted against time, we get a curve that can be used to calculate the initial rate of reaction. The initial rate of a reaction is the gradient of the straight line portion of the plot shown by the dotted line in the graph given. The initial rate of reaction is when concentrations of enzyme and substrate are known. So, this allows a fair comparison if the initial concentrations of the enzyme or substrate are changed. In nature, organisms adjust the conditions of their enzymes to produce an optimum rate of reaction where necessary, or else they may have enzymes which are adapted to function well in extreme conditions where they live. There are several factors that have direct influence on the reaction rate. In general, a factor that increases the number of collisions between the reactant particles will increase the reaction rate naturally, and a factor that decreases the number of collisions between particles will decrease the reaction rate. Thus, the factors that affect the rate at which an enzymatic reaction proceeds are temperature, pH, enzyme concentration, substrate concentration, and the presence of any inhibitors or activators. Okay students, so let us discuss the effect of temperature on the rate of enzyme activity. Enzymes catalyze reactions by randomly colliding with substrate molecules. More successful collisions result in the formation of more product. Now, we know that the temperature of a system is a measure of the kinetic energy of the molecules in the system. Therefore, greater the temperature of the system, higher its kinetic energy. Higher kinetic energy of reacting molecules means more random collisions per unit time, and therefore an increase in the chances of a successful collision. As a result, more reactant molecules possess the energy to reach the transition state, and therefore the reaction rate increases. However, further increase in temperature would increase the vibrational energy of the enzyme molecules, which puts strain on the bonds that hold them together, causing the weaker hydrogen bonds to break. This leads to a change of shape in the active site of the enzyme and makes it less complementary to the shape of the substrate, so that it is less likely to catalyze the reaction. Eventually, the enzyme gets denatured and stops functioning. Thus, we see that as the temperature increases, initially the rate of reaction will increase because of increased kinetic energy, but after a certain temperature, an increase in the vibrational energy will cause the effect of bond breaking to become great, and the rate of reaction will begin to decrease. In fact, there is a certain temperature at which an enzyme's catalytic activity is at its greatest. This is the optimal temperature for that enzyme. Below the optimal temperature, the rate of reaction is imperceptible, and above it, the enzyme denatures and does not work at all. The optimal temperature varies greatly from enzyme to enzyme and from organism to organism. In human cells, for example, the optimal temperature for most enzymes is 37.5 degrees Celsius. On the other hand, there are certain enzymes that can resist very high temperatures and remain stable at high temperatures. These enzymes are synthesized by hyperthermophiles, bacteria and archaea with optimal growth temperatures of greater than 80 degrees Celsius, and are also called hyperthermophilic enzymes. They are typically thermostable, that is, they are resistant to irreversible inactivation at high temperatures and are therefore optimally active at high temperatures. For example, the enzyme Taq DNA polymerase present in thermophilic bacterium Thermus aquaticus has an optimal temperature of 72 degrees Celsius. Thermostability and optimal activity at high temperatures are inherent properties of hyperthermophilic enzymes, and there are many mechanisms responsible for the remarkable stability of hyperthermophilic enzymes. Research suggests that minor improvements of local interactions enhances the intrinsic stability of these hyperthermophilic enzymes. Also, there are certain external environmental factors including cations, substrates, coenzymes, modulators, polyols and proteins that increase the enzyme thermostability. Enzyme thermostability encompasses thermodynamic and kinetic stabilities. thermodynamic stability is defined by the enzyme's free energy of stabilization and by its melting temperature, that is, the temperature at which 50% of the protein is unfolded. Kinetic stability depends on the energy barrier to unfolding, that is, the activation energy of unfolding. Most enzymes characterized from hyperthermophiles are optimally active at temperatures close to the host organism's optimal growth temperature, usually 70 to 125 degrees Celsius. Okay, next let us see what effect does pH have on the rate of enzyme activity. The pH value of a solution refers to the concentration of hydronium and hydroxyl ions. It measures the acidity and basicity of a solution and ranges from pH 1 to pH 14. Lower pH values mean higher hydronium ion concentrations and lower hydroxyl ion concentrations. Higher pH values mean lower hydronium ion concentrations and higher hydroxyl ion concentrations. The presence of charged amino acids at the active site of an enzyme makes it pH dependent. Any change in the pH will affect the polar and non-polar intramolecular attractive and repulsive forces and alter the shape of the enzyme and the active site as well to the point where the substrate molecule could no longer fit, and the chemical change would be inhibited from taking place as efficiently or not at all. In an acid solution, any basic group such as the nitrogen groups in the protein would be protonated. If the environment was too basic, the acid groups would be deprotonated. This would alter the electrical attractions between polar groups and will result in altering the overall charge of the amino acids of the active site of the enzyme. This in turn will alter protein solubility and can cause making or breaking of the intra and intermolecular bonds, and therefore overall shape of the enzyme will also change. Since the catalytic activity of an enzyme relies on a specific state of ionization of amino acid residues, changing the shape or charge of the active site will diminish its ability to bind the substrate, thus abrogating enzyme function. Most enzymes have an optimal pH that may differ between enzymes, and moving outside this range diminishes the enzyme activity. Okay, let us now discuss the effect of substrate concentration on enzyme activity. Increasing the substrate concentration also increases the rate of reaction to a certain point. More substrates mean there is an increased chance of enzyme and substrate colliding and reacting within a given period. However, once all of the enzymes have bound, any substrate increase will have no effect on the rate of reaction, as the available enzymes will be saturated and working at their maximum rate. This is because the active sites of the enzyme molecules at any given moment are virtually saturated with substrate. The enzyme substrate complex has to be dissociated before the active sites are free to accommodate more substrate. It has also been shown experimentally that if the amount of the enzyme is kept constant and the substrate concentration is then gradually increased, the reaction velocity will increase until it reaches a maximum. This maximum rate of reaction for an enzyme is called as its Vmax. A high Vmax value indicates an efficient enzyme. The constant Km is a measure of how well the enzyme is able to bind to the substrate. A low Km value indicates the enzyme has a better affinity for its substrate. Km is the substrate concentration at which the reaction rate is half of Vmax. You can see this in the graph given. Next comes the effect of enzyme concentration on enzyme activity. The concentration of enzyme is directly proportional to the rate of reaction, given that the amount of substrate is not limited. That is, rate of reaction will increase with increasing enzyme concentration as more enzymes will be colliding with substrate molecules. However, this will hold good up to a certain concentration as long as there is substrate available to bind to. Once all of the substrate is bound, the reaction will no longer speed up, since there will be nothing for additional enzymes to bind to. Now, let us take a look at what effect do inhibitors have on enzyme activity. Inhibitors are molecules that interfere with enzyme catalysis either by slowing down the enzymatic reactions or by halting them. Enzymes catalyze virtually all cellular processes, so it should not be surprising that enzyme inhibitors are among the most important pharmaceutical agents known. Aspirin acetyl salicylate inhibits the enzyme that catalyzes the first step in the synthesis of prostaglandins, compounds involved in many processes, including some that produce pain. Some enzymatic inhibitors could also be potent poisons, while some could also be used as antibiotics and drugs to treat other forms of disease. The study of enzyme inhibitors also has provided valuable information about enzyme mechanisms and has helped define some metabolic pathways as well. There are two broad classes of enzyme inhibitors, reversible and irreversible. Reversible inhibitors bind non-covalently to the enzyme and can be dissociated from it. Reversible inhibition is of three types: competitive inhibition, non-competitive or mixed inhibition, and uncompetitive inhibition. In competitive inhibition, the inhibitor is structurally similar to the substrate and occupies the active site of the enzyme and forms an enzyme inhibitor complex and therefore prevents catalysis. These inhibitors compete with the substrate at the active site and therefore increase the Km, that is the Michaelis constant. However, Vmax remains unchanged because with enough substrate concentration, the reaction can still complete. In this case, the graph plot of enzyme activity against substrate concentration would be shifted to the right due to the increase of the Km. In non-competitive or mixed inhibition, the inhibitor binds at a site other than the active site of the enzyme. This inhibitor binding alters the three-dimensional configuration of the active site and prevents catalysis. A mixed inhibitor can bind either to the enzyme or to the enzyme substrate complex. Non-competitive inhibitors decrease the Vmax, however, Km remains unchanged. This is demonstrated by a lower maximum on a graph plotted for enzyme activity against substrate concentration. In uncompetitive inhibition, the inhibitor binds at a site other than the active site of the enzyme and prevents catalysis. However, it can bind only to the enzyme substrate complex and not to the free enzyme. Uncompetitive inhibitor binds to enzyme substrate complex to stop enzyme from reacting with substrate to form product. As such, it works well at higher substrate and enzyme concentrations that substrates are bonded to enzymes. The binding results in decreasing concentration of substrate binding to enzyme. Now, in case of irreversible inhibition, the irreversible inhibitor binds covalently to an enzyme at the active site and destroys a functional group on an enzyme that is essential for the enzyme's activity and therefore makes the enzyme denatured. Other than this, it can also form a particularly stable non-covalent association. It binds to an enzyme in such a way so that no other enzyme substrate complexes can be formed. Irreversible inhibitors render an enzyme permanently non-functional. An example of an irreversible inhibitor is diisopropyl fluorophosphate, which is present in nerve gas. It binds to the enzyme and stops nerve impulses being transmitted. Another example of irreversible inhibition is the antibiotic penicillin. It acts as an irreversible inhibitor of the enzyme glycopeptide transpeptidase. Penicillin covalently binds with an essential serine residue in the active site of glycopeptide transpeptidase, an enzyme that acts to cross-link the peptidoglycan chains during the synthesis of bacterial cell walls. Once the cell wall synthesis is blocked, the bacterial cells undergo osmotic lysis and bacterial growth is halted. Similarly, Aspirin binds covalently with the enzyme cyclooxygenase, reducing the synthesis of prostaglandin. Mechanism-based inhibitor is another type of irreversible inhibitor that binds to the enzyme as a substrate and is initially processed by the normal catalytic mechanism. As a result of catalysis, the substrate is converted to a chemically reactive intermediate that inactivates the enzyme through covalent modification. As an example, let us consider phosphorylation. Phosphorylation can also result in inhibition of certain enzymes. This typically occurs through the action of kinase enzymes. The conformational change to an enzyme caused by the addition of one or more phosphate groups can activate or inhibit the enzyme. For example, phosphorylation of the enzyme glycogen synthetase changes the enzyme shape and reduces its activity. The enzyme catalyzes the conversion of small sugar glucose to the long chain starch glycogen. The phosphorylating agent is glycogen synthetase kinase 3 or GSK3, which can add a phosphate group to the amino acid serine and threonine. In this example, GSK3 adds phosphate groups to the last 3 serine amino acids of glycogen synthetase, making it difficult for the enzyme to interact with glucose. One more interesting inhibition mechanism is the zymogen form of enzymes. Enzymes can also be secreted in an inactive state, which are called zymogens. Zymogens, also called as proenzymes, are a group of enzymes that display no catalytic activity unless transformed within an organism into enzymes, especially those that catalyze reactions involving the breakdown of proteins, for example, trypsinogen and chymotrypsinogen. This is a useful mechanism which allows enzymes to be safely transported to different locations without the enzyme becoming active and performing its function along the way. Zymogens remain inactive due to an addition of amino acids in the protein. Therefore, to activate a zymogen, another enzyme must cleave off these additional amino acids. For example, chymotrypsinogen is synthesized by the pancreas, yet it is inactivated and cannot function. Upon traveling to the intestines, another enzyme, that is trypsin, cleaves off the additional amino acids to produce the activated form, that is chymotrypsin. Okay. So, that was some information about factors affecting the initial rate of enzyme activity. Hope that it was useful. Have a good day. Thank you.